On this episode of That's Montana, we're going to take another trip down memory lane. Couple memories. Number one, we're on the campus of Montana State University in Bozeman, where yours truly tried to get an upper education. But it's also the place where there are a lot of statues like Walt Whitman here that were produced by a college mate of mine, Jim Dolan. And what we're going to explore with Jim is his transition from trying to be in agriculture to moving into the incredible world of art. Jim, let's back up and start at the beginning. When you were up on Poverty Ranch, it was called, and putting together little pieces of metal. Where did it go from there?
I think when I graduated in agriculture, I really enjoyed the ag, but I really wanted to be a sculptor, an artist. So during school, I was in the welding classes doing, making sculpture there, and horse bits and spurs and all the things you did as a college kid. Then when I graduated, I decided, this is more fun than doing something in agriculture. So I stayed with driving school bus, delivering newspapers, and doing my artwork. So now it's been 40 years of full-time work as a sculptor in the state of Montana. I can't imagine a more rewarding life what I've had. And so like the sculpture of Walt Whitman, who is one of my favorite poets, it's kind of fun to give something back to the university and to the people of the state of Montana. My idea with putting Walt on campus is that I want these people to know about Walt Whitman. If you're on campus, you don't have the time to think about these people unless you're in literature. But the idea is that keep walking in front of Walt for 4 years as a student or a classified help or professor or as a visitor. You might eventually pick up one of his books, The Leaves of Grass. You might leave Songs to Myself or something. Read something that gives you some background into who he was, and he's really America's first poet.
Jim, you call him Rusty, and he is, but he's also made out of chain. Where'd the idea come from, and how long did it take you to hang him together?
Well, Rusty was sculpted in 1980. And I saw the chain. It came out of a cement plant from Logan, Montana. I saw this pile of chain down at Pacific Steel. When I saw the chain, I saw the horse. So he was fun to make. He was the 1980. It's the first big piece I made, big animal piece, and it was just a fun one to do. And it's up at the Museum of the Rockies here in Bozeman, and a lot of kids get to ride him. He's set up so you can kind of get up his back leg and his tail head and sit on top and ride him for pictures. So he's a fun horse to have down here.
Jim, with this, let's start at the bottom and work up.
The marble came from Marble, Colorado. 15 years ago, I bought 44,000 pounds of it to use for bases. It also do some marble work with sculpture, which I haven't carved any marble yet, but I have the marble in my place. Right now, that the marble is holding down my 10 acres from blowing away. Oh, okay. So the sculpture itself is Beethoven, and it's one of my pieces I put on campus to give to the university. If you look at Beethoven himself, it's all made out of mostly small little triangular pieces that were scrap steel, and then his hair is wire. The colors come from dyes. I dyed the coat and then the shirt and the tie, then his face, and then we powder coated over that, which will keep it from rusting. I call him Ludwig. That's its title of him. So
now, knowing you the way I do, where did the inspiration come to do a sculpture of Beethoven?
Well, he's a little eccentric, to say the least. And the last, I think, 16, 18 years of his life, he was deaf. And he was a little screwy, so I kind of identify with him. But he was fun, he did some great composing, obviously, and I always thought he was a really different character, and you want some students to see what you can do, even as a handicap, what you could do in your future as a person. So he's kind of a mentor for a lot of music students, I think, for what they can do and what he did as a person.
Now that Jim has shown us around on the campus of Montana State University, and we've seen some of his pieces in natural settings, plus Rusty the horse over in front of the Museum of the Rockies, he's invited us to his studio to see where the magic all begins. Jim, we're inside this beautiful studio that you've erected to do all your playthings in. Tell us some of the stories that you have here. What are these critters?
These are two Scottish Highlanders cattle. It's the skin that you come back and put all the hair on them. These are all cut out with a CNC machine that cut all the hair out, then you put them on small pieces. But this studio has been really fun to work at. I built this 5 years ago, and it's about 4,000 square feet with 28-foot ceilings and overhead cranes and forklifts, and it's enough space to do a lot of projects at one time. You can bounce back and forth. If you're tired of working on horses, you can work on people, or you can work on some abstract piece, and also have room for somebody else to come in and work too. Mostly I use a MIG, which is like a wire feed welder. Puts a wire up through the handle, and you weld it with the wire is actually material you melt with your parrot material. For me, it's an extension of my hand because it's like a paintbrush. If you're a painter, you can actually build sculpture just with the wire by building things up and create it like you would a wax or a clay. Maybe not quite as neat, but you can do it that way. Or you join these things together. Like this horse here is pretty solid now because you can weld them together, and you feel pretty safe with it. So it just arcs out there. You have to have protected helmet and always the safety goggles. You can't be stupid, you know. Well, you can be, but you only did it a couple times.
Yeah, right.
But so it worked out pretty well. You could just put on the spot and pull the trigger, and for my purposes, most of my sculpture is welded. So I learned how to do it and do a lot of it, and hopefully do it well enough. If it doesn't work out well, you just use a grinder. If you're not a good welder, you're a good grinder. This is my 40th year full time, and I can honestly say it's more fun now than when I started, full time. And I'm out here, basically, I put a 40 to 50 hour work week in now if I'm around, and I really enjoy it. Turn the stereo up real loud, some good music, and then the day's mine. I hope everybody has this much fun in their life. They can turn around and do something they want to do, and 40 years later, it's more fun than when you started. That's a real blessing.
There's a pretty intriguing piece of sculptured art by your driveway. Tell us about, what do you call him?
We call him Clyde.
Clyde.
If you remember the Clint Eastwood movie, Any Which Way But Loose, Clyde was the orangutan in that movie. So my children and I, in 1990-91, built this sculpture. There's baler twine, there's two motorcycle engines, one's a 750 Yamaha and a 550 Honda, and there's front ends, Harley Davidson tire in front, and jerry cans for gas, 51 Massey Harris tire for the back tire. And it was just a fun project. The kids made all the twine through little pieces of wire to put on him, and his eyes light up. We put the American flag to make him look a little more classy. Patriotic, yeah. But it's been fun. And during Sturgis, that 2-week period with bikers stop, and we'll get a bunch of pictures. There's a rare day that people don't stop and take pictures with someone here, but this summer we get a lot of bikers. I don't know how they find us, but they do. And they'll get group shots with people out in front with their bikes and pose with Clyde.
Now you
said
fun. Clyde has traveled though too. He isn't
Yes.
just here.
I listened to a bar in Cave Creek, Arizona, about 10 years ago, and when he was gone for a month, I had 31 phone calls for neighbors wondering if I sold Clyde, because they tell people where they live from where Clyde is. My 3 children, who are all grown, they could care less about the property, about the house, anything I have, but they will fight who gets Clyde. They want that.
On the academic side, you have done personification of supposedly the smartest man in the world at one time, Albert Einstein, and you put kind of a unique pose to him. Tell us about that.
I always wanted to do Albert Einstein. I figured, how do you make this guy different than sitting around with a pipe thinking about, some theory on relativity? I thought, well, he must have some fun too, because you've seen pictures of him on a bicycle with this crazy face, I thought, well, if he had a frisbee, he probably would have played frisbee. So I have him throwing a frisbee, and I call it Between Theorems. You actually do more Albert Einstein pieces, because I think you break them down. People are fun people. They don't sit around and think theories all the time. He had fun too.
That's Montana. I'll be right back for more of a tour of Jim's studio right after this.
This is how I started with. I had this I guess, life-size model. He's 6'8", and I actually marked off where the points are for measurements. When I do something big, so I know with some guidelines how this would work, how you somewhat look, and from there I work on it, changing from there and twists and stuff. But you have to have some structure inside to make it work right, and some structure that will be somewhat close to what you want to work with frames. Because bodies, people, within reason, they're all the same proportions. The head is 1/8 the rest of the body. So once you figure this thing out, you can do it, but you have to be thinking all the time. This is a pheasant. This is all out of stainless steel. Kind of the goldish brown color comes from putting it inside of an oven at about 720, 30 degrees. And then the markings on it, the red and the blue on the head and stuff, that's what dyes. But this can go outdoor piece and it won't rust this way. It will stay this color within a reason. Yeah, to finish it, I came back as it's pretty glossy. I came back with some hot wax and actually waxed it with a brush. My biggest bird I've done was an eagle in Japan, which is downtown Osaka. I did this back in mid-80s, 1980s. It was an eagle that was 27 feet tall with a 36-foot wingspan. And we made it all in parts here, then put it in a containerized box, shipped it to Japan. I flew over and reassembled it downtown Osaka with a Japanese crew. That was a great experience. Now most of my work is the United States. I've done some pieces in Belgium and France and Brazil, but mostly the United States.
Jim, how do you fashion the nose and the ears up there? That's so lifelike.
Well, that's actually all stainless right there. I actually made them out of mild steel, and I found a firm in the East Coast that would cast it out of stainless. And actually, the head is one piece of stainless, but I had the eyes open so I could cast another head like that. I can change the eyes different directions, and also the lower jaw comes off, so you can have his mouth open or shut. And also the ears are in holes, so you could give him different attitude with the ears. Well, I figured all these pieces have a place to go, and eventually they find a place. And it might be years. It might be in my yard for the next 30 years. I don't know, but already be gone next week. But it's kind of fun, something different to do, and it's always a different challenge, and try to make steel look like something else.
Jim, we've enjoyed spending the day with you, and looking down the road, we keep talking about past and future. What kind of a legacy is Jim Dolan going to leave, or what does he want to leave?
Always good questions. I try to think in the present, and I think if it brings the smiles to people, it makes them think a little bit, like I'm hoping with the sculptures I'm doing on the MSU campus, that will hopefully be there 100 years from now when some student walks in front of Walt Whitman or Beethoven or whoever else they put up there, or some other place around the state or the nation. They might give them pause to think, what was this person about? And how do I fit into the realm of this whole thing? Because I personally don't care what my legacy is, but I want some people to be able to think down the road that this sculpture made a difference in their life. I know the geese at the airport in Bozeman, I get comments all the time. People say, they can't believe how nice they are. But it's cool because people also say when they see the geese, they know they're home.
After doing a little homework on Groundhog Day, we went to 2 Montana to visit with Montana's version of the groundhog. Meet Gilbert.
Gilbert came to live with us on Mother's Day. Matt called me when I was on my way home from Texas, bringing our daughter back from college, and said, you need to drive straight through because today is Saturday, tomorrow is is Mother's Day, and I've got the most perfect Mother's Day gift for you. So I got here about 7 o'clock in the morning, walked in, and there was a pet porter by the door. And I thought he had gotten a dog. I was not pleased. As I opened the door, he opened the door to the house, and I was reaching in, and he was saying, "No, no, 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 don't stick your hands in there." I reached in and pulled out a baby badger and went, "Oh, crap, this is a badger." But Mac had found him in some upper property that we have closer to the mountains. He had gone up the day before to shut off some head gates. It had snowed, and when he was coming back, this young badger was in the road, in the track that he had made. So Mac stopped and watched him for a couple hours, and when the coyotes and the eagles thought that he looked like a good dinner, Mac decided that he would save the poor little creature. So he brought him back, and we had no idea what to do with a badger. The men had him in a pet porter in the shop trying to figure out how do you feed him without him eating you, not realizing that he was all bluff and no teeth.
Oh.
So that's basically how Gilbert came to live with us.
How do you live with the badger? Obviously, he was in the house for a while.
He was in the house for about 6 months. He got a bath every morning. My goal was to get him acclimated to people and to be around people. So he went everywhere I went. I was going to graduate school in the summer at that time, and so he came to school with me for 4 days a week. They weren't really impressed with him at first, but you know, it kind of grows on you after a while.
Oh, obviously. Catherine, a vet, Harleton, Montana, and you have a unique patient in the form of Gilbert the badger.
Yeah.
Tell us about that phenomenon.
Well, it's been about 2002, so he's going to be 9 years old come May, and the client found them out in the field one day, and it was froze down, just a little pup, and they brought him home and called me up, and we got him warmed up, and so now we have a badger for our patient.
I'll be darned.
We didn't really know how old he was when we first got him. He was blind, and we didn't. So when he was able to see, then we could judge his age, because they don't see till they're about 6 to 8 weeks old. And so once we could realize that he could actually see something, then we knew how old he was when we found him, and he was only like 3 weeks old when they found him. And so we just tried lots of different things, vegetables and cat food and dog food and stuff, but basically he just has a whole smorgasbord of food that he eats. So.
Pretty unique for you then, as far as your
yes.
lineup of patients?
Oh yes, we have some clients that have some other exotic animals, but the badger's probably one of the most interesting ones we have.
You told a story of traveling with Gilbert. Where has Gilbert been around the country?
Oh, you know, for a little badger, he's quite well traveled. He has been down to Kansas to sprint car races. He has been to Colorado for sprint car races. He's been all over the state of Montana. Gilbert will ride in a pickup just like a dog, where he puts his feet on the window and sticks his head out it and likes to see what's going on and smell all the smells. And we're going down Main Street, Sheridan, Wyoming, and came to a stop sign, and a deputy sheriff pulled up beside us. And he looked up at Gilbert, and the light turned green. Neither Mac or I paid any attention to him. We went to the next light. And by that time, Gilbert had figured out there was a guy below him, which was really awesome. And so he's looking down, and I looked down to see what Gilbert was looking at. And the deputy said, that's not what I think it is it? That's not a badger. I said, yeah, it is. And about that time, the light turned green, and away we went.
We were curious about how Gilbert maybe feels about Groundhog Day, even though he's not a groundhog. Have you ever used him as a signal of whether we're going to have spring or 6 more weeks of wintry weather?
We use him more to figure out if the weather's going to be bad or not. In the fall, we can fairly well predict what kind of weather's coming along by how quickly Gilbert's winter hair thickens up and how deep he makes the pile of dirt on top of his house.
So most of the time you keep him in a penned area?
We do. It's a cement container, has cement on 5 sides and expanded steel up and across the top. Badgers can climb. They are very prolific climbers, so you have to be careful what you put them in, and of course they're incessant diggers. I've always tried to make him dig fence posts. He's never dug down. He always kind of digs at an angle.
Dig to the side. What are future plans for Gilbert?
To let him live as happy and as full of life as he can possibly have, and to enjoy him every day, because no 2 days are the same. His personality changes, I swear, hour by hour.
Well, Melody, I want to thank you so much for sharing Gilbert with us and the rest of our audience out there as well. So thank you again for the hospitality.
You're welcome.
Well, that Gilbert's quite an amazing animal, isn't he? Montana's version of the groundhog. We want to thank Jim Dolan and Bozeman and also the McFarland White Ranch for the hospitality in this episode of That's Montana. And by the way, don't forget you can visit us on Facebook and our website, www.thatsmontana.com. See you next Sunday.